They say women are quick to reject men who approach them, but when the tables turn, it becomes a different story entirely. A no from a man can sting in ways some women never expect, especially when they are certain the answer should be yes. Dave was the kind of man whose presence commanded attention without trying. At 29, he carried himself with quiet confidence. Tall, dark-skinned, and impeccably dressed in crisp shirts and tailored trousers, he had the charm of someone who didn't need to speak loudly to be heard. His job as a relationship officer at one of Nigeria's most prestigious first-generation banks in Lagos meant he interacted with high-profile clients daily, always leaving them impressed by his professionalism. Among his coworkers, Dave was well-liked, though he kept a respectful distance from office gossip. He wasn't the kind to flirt carelessly, and while some women found that frustrating, it only made him more intriguing. One of those women was Alice. At 27, she was stunning in her own right, light-skinned with almond-shaped eyes and a figure that turned heads whenever she walked past. Her confidence and charm made her popular with colleagues and clients alike. But beneath her polished exterior, Alice had been carrying a secret for months. She was deeply attracted to Dave. It had started innocently enough. A polite smile when he held the elevator door, a short laugh at one of his dry jokes during a morning briefing, the occasional shared lunch in the staff cafeteria when they bumped into each other at the same time. But the more she interacted with him, the more she noticed little details. The way his tie was always perfectly knotted, the slight dimple in his cheek when he smiled, the calm way he handled difficult clients. Soon, it wasn't just admiration. It was a quiet longing that grew stronger each day. Alice found herself watching him from across the office, timing her coffee breaks to align with his, and lingering after meetings just to walk out at the same time. She began to imagine scenarios, the two of them going out for dinner, holding hands at the beach, even introducing him to her family. It all seemed so perfect in her mind. But there was a problem. Dave was impossible to read. He treated her with the same polite respect he gave every other colleague. No lingering glances, no playful teasing, no casual invitations outside work. Alice told herself he was probably just shy or overly professional. Still, doubt lingered at the back of her mind. Weeks turned into months, and her feelings only deepened. Every small interaction felt like a sign. His smile when she brought him a file, the way he thanked her when she helped with a difficult customer, the rare moments they laughed together during slow afternoons. Alice convinced herself there had to be something there, even if he hadn't voiced it. Her friends outside the office noticed how often she spoke about him. They teased her, telling her to make the first move before someone else claimed him. At first, Alice laughed it off, insisting she was waiting for him to take the lead. But deep down, she knew she was running out of patience. One Thursday evening, as she lay in bed scrolling through her phone, she stumbled upon a motivational post that read, "If you want something, go for it. Closed mouths don't get fed." The words stuck with her. She told herself there was nothing wrong with the woman expressing interest first. It was 21st century Lagos after all. By the next morning, she had made up her mind. She would no longer sit and wonder. She would no longer decode every smile or wait for fate to step in. She would take control of her story and tell Dave exactly how she felt. That day at work, she caught herself glancing at him more often, studying the best moment to approach. She decided she would wait until Friday evening, when the office would be quieter and the week's rush over. Her heart raced every time she imagined the conversation. She had no way of knowing that the answer she would get would change everything. The following evening, the opportunity came. Friday evening came, and with it, a strange mix of excitement and nervousness in Alice's chest. She had rehearsed her words in her head all day, practicing smiles in the ladies' mirror during lunch break and telling herself she had nothing to lose. By 6:30 p.m., the banking hall had grown quiet. Most staff had already left, and the few remaining were tidying their desks or catching up on paperwork. Dave was still at his corner desk, going over a client's loan file. Alice saw her chance. She walked over casually, holding a brown folder in her hand. "Hey, Dave," she said, smiling. "You done for the day?" "Almost," he replied, looking up briefly before returning to the document in front of him. "I was thinking," she continued, "maybe we could step out for a quick coffee. I know a quiet spot down the street. We can talk about that client file for Mr. Benson." Dave glanced at the clock on his desk, then at her. "All right, just give me 5 minutes." Alice's heart skipped. She walked back to her desk, her palms slightly damp, and gathered her bag. She knew the client file was just an excuse. What she really wanted to talk about had nothing to do with work. At the cafe, they chose a small table in the corner. The air smelled of fresh pastries and roasted coffee beans. Alice ordered a cappuccino. Dave asked for black coffee. For a while, they talked about the file, the new branch manager, and the week's stress. Then Alice took a deep breath, her fingers tracing the rim of her cup. "There's something I've been meaning to tell you," she began, her voice softer now. Dave leaned back slightly, his expression open but unreadable. "Okay, what's on your mind?" Alice hesitated for only a moment before letting the words spill out. "I like you, Dave. More than just as a colleague. I've liked you for a while now, and I just thought it was time to be honest about it." The words hung in the air between them. Dave's eyes softened, but there was a heaviness in them. He didn't speak right away. Instead, he took a sip of his coffee before setting the cup down gently. "Alice," he said finally, "I appreciate you telling me this. You're a great person, and I respect you a lot. But I'm already in a serious relationship. I've been with her for over a year, and I'm committed to her." The cafe seemed quieter all of a sudden. Alice managed a tight smile, though her chest felt like it was caving in. "Oh, I see," she said, forcing a small laugh. "Well, that's good for you." "I hope this doesn't make things awkward between us," Dave added, his tone sincere. "I really value our working relationship." "Of course," Alice replied quickly, waving her hand as if brushing it off. "It's fine, really. I just needed to say it. No big deal." But it was a big deal. On the walk back to the bank so they could both pick up their cars, Alice barely heard a word Dave said. Her mind was a whirlpool of embarrassment, disappointment, and something darker she couldn't yet name. She had prepared herself for the possibility of rejection, but she hadn't prepared for the sharp sting of it actually happening, especially from someone she thought might secretly feel the same way. At the parking lot, they said a polite goodbye. Dave drove off, and Alice sat in her car for several minutes before starting the engine. She stared at her reflection in the rearview mirror, the image of her smiling bravely masking the fire brewing inside. That night, she couldn't sleep. The rejection played over in her mind like a scene on repeat. And then, as if to rub salt in the wound, she remembered the time she had seen Dave chatting on the phone and smiling, probably with her. The thought made her stomach twist. By the end of the weekend, the initial sadness had faded, replaced by a strange determination. She told herself she could move on, but deep down, something else was beginning to form. Something that would soon push her past the point of no return. And by Monday morning, Alice had already begun to think differently. By Monday morning, Alice had mastered her mask. She walked into the bank looking as radiant as ever, greeting colleagues with her usual charm, laughing at harmless jokes in the break room. To anyone watching, nothing had changed. But inside, she was a volcano, calm on the surface, molten beneath. The rejection still stung. It wasn't just the no that hurt. It was the way Dave had said it, so calm, so final, as if the possibility of them together had never even crossed his mind. And then there was her, the girlfriend Alice had never met but could no longer stop thinking about. Over the next week, Alice began observing Dave more closely. She noticed the way his phone lit up during lunch breaks, how his expression softened when he read certain messages, the small smile that tugged at his lips. She even caught him once slipping out during lunch to take a call in private, his tone low and affectionate. Curiosity turned into a mission. Alice quietly asked a friendly junior staff member if he knew anything about Dave's girlfriend. The junior, eager to gossip, revealed her name, Clara. She was a marketing executive at an advertising firm, and from the little he'd seen on Dave's phone screensaver, she was very beautiful. That night, Alice found Clara on Instagram. Her profile was public, filled with pictures of her bright smile, her chic outfits, her dinners with friends. And there, in the middle of it all, were occasional photos with Dave, laughing together, holding hands, looking effortlessly happy. Alice stared at those pictures for hours. In her mind, Clara wasn't just Dave's girlfriend. She was the wall blocking Alice from what she wanted. It began subtly. Alice started visiting places Clara posted about online, hoping to bump into her. She followed her once after spotting her at a cafe, trailing a few cars behind. She learned Clara's office location, her gym schedule, even the evenings she visited Dave's apartment. Soon, Alice crafted a plan to insert herself into Clara's life. She staged a meeting at an industry networking event where Clara's company was presenting. Posing as a potential client, she struck up a conversation. Clara, polite and unsuspecting, introduced herself warmly. They exchanged numbers under the guise of future business collaboration. From there, Alice began building trust. She sent casual messages, suggested coffee meetings, and pretended to admire Clara's work. All the while, she was gathering information, small details about her routine, her vulnerabilities, her habits. Weeks passed, and Alice's obsession grew darker. She no longer cared about whether Dave would ever return her feelings. This was about removing Clara entirely. Her mind painted dangerous possibilities, each one more reckless than the last. One evening, while sitting in her apartment with a glass of wine, Alice stared at a printed picture of Clara she had taken secretly weeks before. On the table beside her was a small black notebook filled with dates, addresses, and observations, her own personal Clara file. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from Clara. "Hey Alice, are you free for lunch next week?" Alice's lips curved into a slow, deliberate smile. The next phase was about to begin. But the line between calculated planning and impulsive action was thinner than Alice realized. One misstep could unravel everything, or make her succeed in ways she had only dared to imagine. That Friday night, she left her apartment wearing a black hoodie, her hair tucked away, and a small handbag slung over her shoulder. She moved with quiet precision, her steps purposeful. Where she was going and what she intended to do was known only to her. Hours later, as the streets of Lagos quieted and the neon signs blinked lazily, a shadow moved near a familiar apartment block. A figure lingered just outside, watching, waiting. And somewhere in the darkness, a soft click was heard, like the opening of a small metallic clasp. The next morning, the news would break. But whether it was the story Alice had been writing in her head or something far more unexpected, no one could yet tell.